Next question in regards to some clients come to me like they have used anabolic steroids in past, uh, but now they are off from it, like say from 5 6 months, and they tell me that their testosterone level is normal, but their sex drive is still very low or little or none.
Yeah.
How does that happen? How does that happen?
So what we sort of term this, and it's a new phrase, is androgen steroid induced hypogonadism. So
Uh-huh.
like we spoke about earlier in the podcast, you can have hypogonadism symptoms and have normal testosterone.
Uh-huh.
So when someone takes steroids, they can have an effect on dopamine metabolism in your brain.
Yeah.
So dopamine is the neurotransmitter. It's an excitatory transmitter in your brain
Hmm.
that gives you ambition and drive, and makes you take risky behaviors. It's
Yes.
also it's also what's involved in sexual stimulation. You need to have a certain amount of dopamine in your brain to get sexually stimulated. So
Yes.
when you finish steroids and you go back to this normal testosterone level, your dopamine metabolism could still be slightly off compared to when you're at a higher testosterone level. So it is perfectly normal for someone to have lower libido post cycle and for the months post cycle as, I guess, a side effect of that increase in dopamine metabolism when you were taking steroids.
Uh-huh.
Um, and sometimes the androgen receptor can be a little bit resistant to the natural level of testosterone that they're making. So you do start to see this drop in sex drive until that neurotransmitter balance corrects itself. And that can take up to a year, or it can take up to 5 years.
Uh-huh.
It's very inter individual. And this is again a side effect that most people aren't told about, that you
Yeah.
can do PCT or you
Yeah.
can take time away from steroids. Your
Yeah.
testosterone level can come back to normal, but you can
Yeah.
still have hypogonadal side effects.
Great. 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 That's really that people who do want to do a steroid cycle, this only thing can push them off.
Yeah,
Like
I mean, it just lets you know then that basically it doesn't come without risk. That
yeah.
when you finish, there's still side effects that can still happen, even though you come back to a natural testosterone level.
Are there any things to in that case anything that they can use to check they actually have steroid induced hypogonadism? Like they can check their LH, FSH, or how do they determine?
So, if you have this, it's very difficult to determine because this person
Uh-huh.
is going to have normal LH and FSH, and they're going to have normal testosterone, but they're going
Okay.
to have the symptoms of hypogonadism because of coming from a high level of testosterone down to a lower level of testosterone.
Mm-hmm.
We also see, again, like I talked about, metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome can develop in people who have taken steroids and come back to a normal level of testosterone because of certain body processes become dependent on a higher than normal level of testosterone to work efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
So you can start to see issues with blood glucose or um, diabetic issues developing from someone coming from a high level of testosterone to a normal level of testosterone.
Mm-hmm.
And that can drive someone back to TRT from a health management perspective, as opposed to, I guess, um, for longevity. So if this person was taking steroids, say for 5 years, decides to do
Mm-hmm.
PCT,
Mm-hmm.
they have a successful PCT where their natural testosterone is perfect now, and they're making LH-FSH. Their
Mm-hmm.
other blood markers, so their cardiometabolic health, their liver, kidneys, some of these processes could be affected because it was so used to being at this higher level of testosterone that when it came back to normal, the body processes don't have a chance to adapt to this lower natural level of testosterone again.
Uh-huh.
And again, this is something that's probably going to become more pronounced as we start to see, I guess, more use of steroids happening in the mainstream, and obviously these issues being reported then to medical doctors.
Yeah, because people do not talk about these issues because they feel embarrassed, talking about these things.
Yeah.
So At least in India, they do feel embarrassed talking about it. I don't know
No,
how.
it's a stigma all throughout the world, and I guess it comes back to a lack of education. There
Yeah.
isn't. I have several friends who are GP doctors, medical doctors, and
Hmm.
when I speak to them about steroid use, and obviously with them treating patients, their incidence of treating, I guess, steroid users in their clinics is very low.
Hmm.
Either people are embarrassed to go speak to their GP for fear of
Hmm.
stigma, or
Hmm.
they just don't want their GP to know about their steroid use. Now, the issue there then is that GPs aren't exposed to these patients, so they never ever develop the, I guess, personal professional development that's required then to treat patients like this. Because if they get someone who comes in and they have natural testosterone, but they have all
Hmm.
these metabolic problems from steroid use previously,
Yeah.
the doctor is not going to know exactly why that person has that issue in the first place.
Yeah. He may say that's all in his mind.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's why, when I asked a friend before, I said to him, like, why don't doctors ever delve into, professional development for steroid users? And the simple answer was, in 9 to 10 years of practicing in the surgery, he's had maybe 5 or 6 patients who have been steroid users
Mm.
out of the hundreds of thousands he would have seen over
Yeah.
the years. That he said it's such a low number within communities that it's not something that the medical ethos takes seriously at the moment.
Have you ever seen permanent shutdown uh, on a steroid user? Like some
I've
clients must have come. Yeah.
I've not yet seen anyone who has been shut down permanently. I had one person who did need referral to an endocrinologist
Hmm.
because of their HPTA was very resistant to restarting.
Hmm.
Um, and obviously in that case, that person then needs to take account for what risks they undertook taking steroids, basically.
Hmm.
Um, but within 4 or 5 months of being treated by the endocrinologist, the HPTA did recover back to normal function. So
Uh-huh.
I guess with HPTA shutdown, there is a I'm not going to say a high likelihood, but there's more
Hmm.
chance of it recovering than being permanently shut down, to be honest.
Yeah. Uh, like people, can someone recover from steroid usage without even usage of PCT? If that happens, how many months they can take?
So there's no time frame. The very old school approach that endocrinologists had towards steroid use was this approach: come off everything and wait.
Uh-huh.
Now, that's not going to be a brilliant solution for
Yeah.
someone who's trying to restart their HPTA, because
Yeah.
they're going to spend several months at a hypogonadal level of testosterone.
Yeah. And feel like
So
shit.
exactly, and then also with that, you're going to end up with I guess you're going to end up with a scenario where there's, again, cardiometabolic issues happening, liver
Uh-huh.
issues happening. It's not as simple as just telling someone come off everything, because again,
Yeah.
we don't understand that person's mental stability could be very bad,
Yeah.
and again, obviously could lead to issues with their mental health. So
Hmm.
the whole come off and do nothing is a very old school approach that, to be honest,
Uh-huh.
we can make more educated decisions based on blood work and the availability of pharmaceuticals today, rather than I guess telling someone come off
Hmm.
everything.
Hmm. Okay. All right.